In December 2015, a 22-year-old American tourist embarked on the kind of unique adventure that many of us will never experience in our lifetime. A 6-day trip to North Korea. It would be 17 months until he returned, unable to see, unable to hear, and unable to speak. He died just 6 days after landing on American soil. What happened to him remains one of the most chilling mysteries of our time. This is the case of Otto Warmbier. June 13th, 2017, Cincinnati, Ohio, USA. Fred and Cindy Warmbier walked toward a plane that had just landed, its engine still humming. They hadn't spoken to their son in a year and a half. When they got halfway up the steps, they heard something that would haunt them forever. The sound of howling, involuntary, inhuman. They weren't sure what it was at first. Then they saw him. Their 22-year-old son was strapped to a stretcher, jerking violently. His head was shaved. A feeding tube came out of his nose. His eyes were wide and darting around, but he couldn't see. He couldn't hear. He was making strange guttural sounds that didn't seem possible coming from a human being. Otto's sister Greta ran screaming from the aircraft. Their mother chased after her. Fred Warmbier stayed. He looked at his son and later described what he saw. He was a complete vegetable. There was no comforting Otto. He was unrecognizable. Just 17 months earlier, Otto had been an ordinary college student, majoring in commerce and economics at the University of Virginia. He had delivered the salutatorian speech at his high school graduation. He was a gifted football player and a natural leader. He had grown up in a wealthy family, showered with his parents' love. He was a promising young man on an elite track to a bright future. Now, he was blind, deaf, brain dead. He died 6 days later after his parents requested his feeding tube be removed. What happened during those 17 months? How was it possible that Otto Warmbier entered North Korea as a normal, healthy college student and was returned in a vegetative state? Before we examine this, let's learn about the man Otto was before he arrived in North Korea. He was born on December 12, 1994, in Cincinnati, Ohio. His father, Fred Warmbier, was a businessman who ran a metal finishing company. His mother, Cindy Warmbier, was a homemaker. Born into a comfortable middle-class Jewish family, Otto was the eldest of 3 children. He was smart from an early age. He graduated high school as a top honor student, finishing a salutatorian and delivered a speech at his graduation ceremony. He then enrolled at university, joined the Theta Chi fraternity, and was active in Hillel, the Jewish student organization. He maintained excellent grades and was popular among his peers. In the fall of 2015, Otto was a junior in college, participating in an exchange program in Hong Kong. And that's when he discovered an unusual travel company, Young Pioneer Tours, a travel agency that organized North Korea tours for young Westerners. Their marketing was deliberately provocative, budget travel to destinations your mother would rather you stayed away from. A 5-night, 6-day New Year's tour of North Korea. The price was around $1,200. For a curious college student, it must have seemed like quite an attractive adventure. His friends tried to dissuade him. His parents worried too. The US State Department strongly warned American citizens not to travel to North Korea. But Otto said it would be fine. The travel agency had assured him it was safe. As his mother later said, "Why would you say no to a kid like this?" In fact, thousands of Westerners had visited North Korea through this agency, and none of them had ever had problems. On December 29, 2015, Otto boarded an Air Korea flight from Beijing to Pyongyang with a group of about 20 tourists, including 10 other Americans. He must have been excited. The most closed-off country in the world. The thought of seeing with his own eyes an elusive world that he had only caught glimpses of on the internet. Upon arriving in Pyongyang, Otto's group stayed at the Yanggakdo International Hotel, a 47-story hotel located on an island in the middle of the Taedong River, North Korea's main facility for accommodating foreign tourists. The hotel was designed to keep foreigners isolated. There was nowhere to go, no escape. The tour itinerary proceeded smoothly for several days. Kim Il-sung Square, the Chuche Tower, Mangyeongdae, the demilitarized zone. They saw what North Korea wanted to show their foreign guests and followed wherever the guides led them. Though it was a trip that was curated to the finest detail, there were some more human moments. Otto had the chance to throw snowballs with local North Korean children. On New Year's Eve, the group gathered in Kim Il-sung Square at the heart of Pyongyang to celebrate the start of 2016. Some continued the celebrations even after returning to the hotel, drinking alcohol late into the night. What happened next becomes murky. According to North Korea, at 1:57 a.m. on January 1st, someone entered a staff-only area on the second floor of the hotel. They reached up and removed a propaganda poster from the wall, a framed banner bearing the slogan, "Let's arm ourselves strongly with Kim Jong-il's patriotism." To those outside of North Korea, it's hard to express the seriousness of such an action. Damaging any item bearing the name or image of a leader is considered not just a crime, but a crime against the state. North Korea later released grainy black and white CCTV footage showing a shadowy figure removing the poster and placing it on the floor. The face of the person is never visible in the video. But here's where things get really strange. Otto's roommate on the trip was Danny Grattan, a British sales manager. Grattan later said he was bowling at the hotel until around 4:30 a.m. When he returned to their shared room, he found Otto fast asleep in his bed. If the footage was timestamped 1:57 a.m. and Otto was asleep when Grattan returned hours later, what happened in between? Did Otto actually do it? Was he set up? No one outside North Korea knows for certain. What we do know is what happened next. January 2nd, 2016, the morning of the tour group's departure. They arrived at Pyongyang Sunan International Airport early, ready to fly to Beijing and get back to their regular lives. Everything seemed normal as the travelers checked their bags. Otto was waiting patiently at the end of the line. Then, two guards approached. Danny Grattan witnessed what happened. No words were spoken. Two guards just came over and simply tapped Otto on the shoulder and led him away. I just said, kind of quite nervously, "Well, that's the last we'll see of you." There's a great irony in those words. That was it. That was the last physical time I saw Otto ever. Otto didn't resist. He didn't look scared. He sort of half smiled. On board the plane, a North Korean official told one of the tour guides that Otto was very sick and had been taken to the hospital, claiming that he would be released the next day or the following week. In reality, he had not been taken to the hospital. He had been arrested. The others in his tour group flew home without incident, and 3 weeks passed without news of Otto. His family had no idea where he was or what had happened to him. Then, North Korea State News Agency announced that an American had been detained for a hostile act against the state. No further details were offered. On February 29, 2016, North Korea held a press conference. Otto Warmbier appeared before the world's media. His appearance, revealed after 2 months, was shocking. He wept as he spoke. Reading from a prepared statement, he confessed that he had attempted to steal a propaganda poster from a restricted staff-only area of the hotel. He said he did it at the behest of an unlikely triumvirate, a Methodist church in Ohio, a secret society at the University of Virginia called Z Society, and the US government. He sobbed. "I had made the single worst decision of my life. but I am only human. I beg that you find it in your own hearts to give me forgiveness and allow me to return home to my family. It was already difficult to believe that a young college student would attempt to overthrow the North Korean regime, but to suggest he would do so for a Methodist church and a secret society was absurd. As was later confirmed, Otto had no connection whatsoever to Z Society. A member of the organization confirmed they had never been in contact with him. He had no relationship with the church either. He wasn't even Methodist. He was Jewish. Regardless, who would go all the way to North Korea to steal a poster for a secret society initiation? And what exactly would such a mission have to do with the United States government? It was obviously a coerced confession, but North Korea proceeded with a trial based on these far-fetched claims. 2.5 weeks after the press conference, Otto stood trial in a North Korean courtroom. The entire thing lasted just 1 hour. The judge was shown his videotaped confession, the CCTV footage, fingerprint evidence, and witness testimony. His defense attorney argued that while the gravity of his crime was such that he could not pay even with his death, the court should consider a reduced sentence from the prosecution's request of life imprisonment. In March 2016, North Korea Supreme Court sentenced Otto Warmbier to 15 years of hard labor. The U.S. State Department called the sentence unduly harsh. Human Rights Watch called it outrageous and shocking for a college-style prank. Otto just disappeared. Where he was taken, what kind of life he was living, whether he was even alive, nothing was known. Neither the U.S. government nor his family had any way of confirming Otto's location or physical condition. Even Swedish diplomats who represent U.S. interests in the country were barred from visiting Otto. Back in Ohio, his parents were told by the Obama administration to stay quiet. They were advised to keep a low profile, while the government worked to obtain his release, so as not to offend the North Koreans. Fred and Cindy Warmbier did what they were advised to do. Months passed with no word. In December 2016, on Otto's 22nd birthday, Cindy lit Chinese-style lanterns in their backyard. She let the winter winds lift them into the sky, dreaming they might somehow bear her message to her son. "I love you, Otto," she said. Then she sang Happy Birthday, alone. At one point during the long vigil, the Warmbiers allegedly told friends they believed Otto had probably been killed. What the Warmbiers didn't know, what nobody knew, was that Otto hadn't been killed, but something catastrophic had happened almost immediately after his sentencing in March. According to later accounts from North Korea, Otto contracted botulism food poisoning, took a sleeping pill, and then never woke up. For the next 15 months, North Korea kept it a secret. They had a comatose American student hidden away, and they told no one. Meanwhile, the Warmbiers kept waiting. The new Trump administration took office in January 2017, and Fred and Cindy decided that the time for strategic patience was over. They began making media appearances, traveled to Washington, and met with Ambassador Joseph Yoon at the State Department. Then months later, in June 2017, North Korea suddenly reached out. During a meeting with U.S. officials in New York, North Korean representatives revealed that Otto Warmbier had been in a coma for over a year. They wanted to send him home. But why now? The answer became horrifyingly clear when American officials arrived in Pyongyang to retrieve him. On June 12, 2017, Ambassador Yoon and an emergency medicine doctor named Michael Flukiger flew to Pyongyang on a medical evacuation plane. They were taken to the Friendship Hospital, a facility that exclusively treats foreign patients. There, they found Otto Warmbier lying in a room marked Intensive Care Unit. He had a feeding tube in his nose, and he was in a vegetative state. But before they could take him home, the North Koreans had demands. First, Dr. Flukiger was asked to write a report testifying that the North Koreans had taken good care of Otto. Then came the bill. North Korean officials handed Ambassador Yoon an invoice for $2 million US, payment for Otto's medical care. They insisted that he sign an agreement to pay it before they would release the comatose student. Yoon called Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Tillerson called President Trump. The answer came back. Sign it. Do whatever it takes to bring Otto home. Yoon signed the pledge. Years later, when Otto's father Fred learned about the $2 million bill, he said it sounded like one thing: ransom. President Trump later denied the US ever actually paid the money, though it remains unclear what ultimately happened to the bill. On June 13, 2017, Otto Warmbier was flown home to Cincinnati. His parents were optimistic. Doctors had told them Otto was in a coma, but they had imagined that meant their son was in a peaceful state of sleep, like in the movies. They thought that with American healthcare and their love, he might wake up. He might recover and become the vivacious young man he'd been before. Then they walked up the steps of the plane. When we got halfway up the steps, we heard this howling, involuntary, inhuman sound, Fred Warmbier recalled. We weren't really certain what it was. That was before they heard this inhuman howling coming from inside the plane, before they saw him. Saw his shaved head, the feeding tube coming out of his nose, his body violently jerking, and his wide eyes. It was before they understood that he was unable to see, hear, or speak. The doctors at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center examined Otto and delivered their findings. Extensive brain damage, the type caused by prolonged oxygen deprivation. His brain had been starved of blood and oxygen for somewhere between 5 and 20 minutes at some point over a year before his return to the US. The damage was so severe, the lead neurologist concluded that it was unlikely Otto had been anywhere near medical personnel who were willing and able to resuscitate him when the injury occurred. There was no evidence of botulism, the cause North Korea had claimed. Whatever happened to Otto Warmbier, it happened fast. It was catastrophic, and no one helped him. 2 days after returning home, Otto's fever spiked up to 104 degrees. His body was failing. 4 days after that, on June 19, 2017, Otto Warmbier died at the age of 22, after his parents requested his feeding tube be removed. His mother, Cindy, said she refused to let him out of her sight until the very end. Otto was abandoned by his family, his country, and the rest of the world for 17 months, Fred Warmbier said. Ultimately, when Kim made the decision, Otto was tortured and essentially murdered. In July 2017, the month following Otto's death, the US government announced it would ban American tourists from visiting North Korea, with Otto's case cited as a primary reason. Young Pioneer Tours, the company that had taken Otto to North Korea with slogans like, "This is the trip your parents don't want you to take," announced it would no longer accept American citizens on its tours. But the story doesn't end there. The family wanted to know the truth. The family declined a full autopsy, not wanting Otto's body to endure anymore, but allowed the Hamilton County coroner to conduct an external examination. No evidence of torture was found. In fact, the coroner stated that Otto's body was well nourished and in surprisingly good condition for someone bedridden for over a year, suggesting he had received regular physical care. The coroner also said there was no evidence of trauma to his teeth. But Otto's parents and his private experts saw things differently. 2 of Otto's personal dentists testified in court that post-mortem dental x-rays showed some of his lower teeth had shifted backward compared to earlier records, consistent with some sort of impact. The family also pointed to a large scar on his foot that the coroner could not explain. The cause of death was officially listed as complications from brain damage due to oxygen deprivation from an unknown insult more than a year prior to death. The manner of death? undetermined. The Warmbier family pursued justice for Otto through the legal system, and in December 2018, a U.S. federal court ruled in favor of the family in their lawsuit against North Korea. The court found North Korea liable for Otto's torture and death, awarding over $500 million in damages. Expert witnesses suggested Otto may have been subjected to electric shocks and other forms of torture. However, it's important to understand this was a default judgment. North Korea never responded to the lawsuit or contested the allegations. The court's findings were based entirely on testimony presented by the Warmbier family's legal team. These allegations of specific torture methods have never been independently verified. What is certain is that a healthy 22-year-old entered North Korea and within weeks of his sentencing suffered a catastrophic brain damage from oxygen deprivation. Something happened in that time frame, something that stopped blood and oxygen from reaching his brain for 5 to 20 minutes. North Korea hid his comatose state for over a year, and they only sent him home when it became clear he was going to die. North Korea's response to Otto's death was stunning in its audacity. Officials said their country was the biggest victim of Warmbier's death, calling the accusations against them a smear campaign. A spokesman declared, although we had no reason at all to show mercy to such a criminal of the enemy state, we provided him with medical treatments and care with all sincerity on a humanitarian basis. North Korea called the treatment of Otto humanitarian. The Warmbiers called it murder. Despite the Warmbiers' legal victory, North Korea wasn't about to hand over the money willingly. But the family found another way to fight the regime. They began tracking down North Korean assets scattered around the world. In 2019, the US government seized the North Korean cargo ship Wise Honest in Indonesia, a vessel that had been smuggling coal in violation of sanctions. The ship was sold, and the proceeds went toward compensating the Warmbier family and other victims of North Korea. In 2022, the family was awarded approximately $240,000 in seized funds from a North Korean bank account. In October 2023, they recovered an additional $2.2 million in North Korean funds that had been frozen in a Russian bank, money connected to Air Korea, North Korea's state-run airline. The family also worked to shut down North Korean businesses operating illegally out of embassies around the world, in Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Russia, and Germany. In Berlin, they successfully pressured authorities to close a hostel operating on North Korean embassy property. But despite these victories, there were also setbacks. In February 2019, at the conclusion of President Trump's second summit with Kim Jong-un, Trump announced that he had discussed Otto's treatment with Kim. And then, he said, "He tells me he didn't know about it, and I will take him at his word." The Warmbiers, who had been respectful throughout the summit process, finally spoke out. "Kim and his evil regime are responsible for the death of our son Otto," they said in a statement. "Kim and his evil regime are responsible for unimaginable cruelty and inhumanity. No excuse or lavish praise can change that." Years later, the Warmbier family's fight continues. Wherever North Korean assets exist in the world, they pursue them. They are determined to fight until Kim Jong-un regime is held fully accountable. Cindy Warmbier, in a press conference, pledged that she would fight until she dies. The full truth of what happened to Otto Warmbier may never be known. No full autopsy was performed. The coroner found no definitive evidence of torture, but also could not explain how a healthy young man suffered such catastrophic brain damage. His private dentist saw signs of trauma that the coroner did not confirm. The federal court ruling against North Korea was never contested. Otto Warmbier was 22 years old. His mother still thinks of him almost every minute of every day. She doesn't want to remember him in detention or in the hospital. She wants to remember the sweet, intelligent man who was beloved by his peers, who threw snowballs with North Korean children, and who wanted to see the world. And to this day, his parents are still fighting for justice. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.